the double bass is a physically demanding instrument. You have to stand up to play it. It's heavy and it's difficult and awkward. So there was an element when getting good at it that I just needed to put the hours in and just play a lot and practice a lot. And I felt like I could do that. So that's why I wanted to pursue music.
Hello, my name is Eline Perez and you're listening to Are You an Artist? Today's episode is with Toby Yapp and it's about double bass, jazz music and drama. I learned a lot from Toby about music, about learning an instrument, so if you're interested, curious, intrigued, I'll let you now enjoy this fantastic episode.
'Cause it may rain, and when it pours, can't be outdoors without my cane. If I ever left my house without my walking stick, it would be something that I could never explain.
Dear Toby, I admire musicians so much. I think they're clever and amazing. So when I met you last week and heard that you played double bass, which is one of my favorite instruments, I knew you had to be here. I listened to your SoundCloud, of course, and I'm definitely a fan. You are a musician and peripatetic music teacher based in London. You went to the Royal Academy of Music and have been playing jazz in many places for the last 4 years. But you've been raised in Bristol, were a chorister for 5 years and studied classical piano as well. Thank you, Toby, for coming. The first question I ask is, are you an artist?
I am an artist.
Yay!
Yay! Yes, I'm an artist. That was a really good intro. I like that.
Thank you very much.
I can't believe you found my SoundCloud.
It's so cool.
Is it? I haven't posted anything on there in a really long time.
Yeah, I just started to play. I don't know what it was. It was a picture of you with other people and BBC.
Yeah, that's the stuff I'm playing tonight.
Ah, well.
So that was a recording we did with a band I'm in called the Fedelio Hot Club, which is a riff on the kind of the Hot Club. I think it's Hot Club de France, which is the Django Reinhardt. That was what he called his group, I think, back in the day, playing that kind of music. And we do that. So it started out this evening at the Middleton Arms. I started playing gypsy jazz there, and I hadn't played it beforehand. I had a friend who was very good at it, and I always loved that music. So I said to him, "Would you let me know if you need a bass player for this sort of stuff? Because I really like it."
Yeah.
And he said, "Why not? Why don't you come along to the Middleton Arms and start playing with us down there?" And it grew and grew and grew. And then eventually I now play with the 2 guitarists and a violinist at a different venue called the Fidelio Cafe, which often puts on a lot of classical music, but they decided to put on a gypsy jazz night. And then I'm not entirely sure how it came about, but Ray, the violinist who runs that gig, someone got in touch with him from the BBC. And they said, "Would you like to come on this program and play live?" Which was crazy.
So cool,
It was really scary.
Yeah.
Because we were in the room with the host and he was talking on the mic and everything. And then eventually he would just go and take it away. And then we'd just have to play. And it was live radio. It was terrifying. But because my dad, thankfully, recorded all of it live, we've got the recordings.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me, what kind of child were you?
I was quite a curious child. I wasn't sort of mischievous, I wouldn't say. I don't think I had that kind of energy, but I was definitely curious about everything and quite in touch with my creative side. My dad is a fantastic classical piano player and a big music fan. So I was introduced to music from an early age.
Okay.
And I was always very encouraged.
So did you learn piano with him?
So I didn't, actually. I got a piano teacher from when I was very young. And they helped me kind of get in touch with the piano and figure out how it worked. And, I made some good progression. And I sort of continued that throughout the rest of my school years. And I managed to get my grade 8 in 2019 maybe. So just when I finished school. But I was always into music, and I also was into drama for a really long time. So I was lucky to have somewhere like I went to the Bristol Old Vic.
Okay.
Which,
I wasn't sure because I saw something about that as well. I was like, Bristol Theatre, and I was like, acting? Oh.
Yeah. I used to do youth theatre there. So they have something called the Young Company, which is like a youth program for kids in Bristol to come and kind of have these like afternoon Saturday sessions where you play lots of drama games and you do a little bit of devising and stuff. And then eventually it would get around to the summer and they'd do a summer show. And so you got the chance to be in a big show with all the rest of the Young Company.
So cool.
It was never pre-written. It was always a devised thing. So all the kids would come up with the ideas.
Wow.
And this one dramaturg, I suppose.
So you're a bit of a playwright as well.
Well, we all contributed. That's the thing. It was amazing because a lot of kids were just throwing out crazy ideas, and then all these amazing adults would be there to like take the ideas down and then form them into a script somehow, and then get us to perform it. And so that was really amazing. So I was into acting for a really long time as well.
And double bass.
And double bass came later.
Okay.
Yeah. I played piano from a very young age, and then I sort of got into acting and drama, and then kind of discovered the electric bass first through watching a school concert. And I saw one of the teachers playing the electric bass at the school concert, and I just thought it looked very cool. So
it does look very cool.
It looks cool and it sounds cool, and I just thought, yeah, that's cool. So I wanted to learn it. So I asked him for some lessons, and he was very gracious and gave me some lessons. And then I sort of I think because bass players have always been in demand, there's not many people that play bass. And especially at the school I was at, there was only one other bass player, and he was a few years above me.
Do you know why there are not so many bass players?
I think it's a very cool instrument, and people always think it's a very cool instrument. But having taught bass in schools now, kids aren't that interested in it, or they don't know about the bass. They're much more interested in the electric guitar.
Okay. I guess because it kind of creates the whole rhythm and everything, but it's a bit hidden as well.
Exactly, yeah. So it's at the back, and it's not like a flashy. You don't get to do big solos, and you don't get to be at the front of the stage. I mean, some bass players can sort of make it that way, but most of the time you're in the back playing.
The mysterious guy.
Yeah.
Hidden in the shadow.
It's not like a flashy role, so I don't think a lot of people are that interested at a young age. So, yeah, there weren't many bass players in the school. So when it came time to like put all these school bands together and groups, I was just kind of thrust into it. But it was great because I got to play with a lot of older kids and stuff. And so I was playing in the senior jazz quintet for a bit, just learning how to play jazz electric bass. And then naturally I kind of just sort of, people were saying like, you should play the double bass.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin who played double bass.
Oh.
So I knew what it was. And I thought that looked really cool as well, because I looked up to my cousin a lot. And that's how I got there, kind of. Long answer. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people told me it's so hard to learn the double bass.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. I think it's just a challenging instrument to even pick up in the first place. Because if you've played bass guitar or whatever, you've got frets. So you know where you're at. You know how to like get a sound out of it. Guitar strings are they're a lot thinner. So they're easier to make a good sound. The double bass is just like everything's against you because there's no frets. The strings are really thick and they hurt your fingers to play. You have to like toughen your fingers up.
Yeah.
I mean, my fingers are kind of pretty calloused, as you
Yeah.
can see. There's so many times when you're just playing when you first start out and you get horrible blisters and the skin rips and it's hard.
Yeah.
And all that stuff can just put you off.
Yeah.
From the get-go. There's a lot of stuff, and it's it's heavy, it's big. There's a lot of things that aren't really... It's expensive, yeah. But I think because of that, it makes, again, even the double bass player is probably even more in demand than the electric bass player. Because who's going to take the time to go and buy a double bass and learn how to play it?
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment, yeah, which means there are less of us, but it's a commitment that if you actually follow that it's worthwhile, you know? Yeah.
And how did you decide to study music then and not drama?
I think I just realized at a certain point that drama was fun, but I realized the kind of commitment it took to be a really good actor was more than I was prepared to do. So I had a great drama teacher at school, Mr. Anderson, who was fantastic, and he really kind of took it seriously. And it was he never treated us like children. Yeah, like he obviously respected the fact that we were teenagers and stuff, but he gave us challenging material to learn.
Yeah.
And really sort of expected a lot of us in a good way. And I think through that experience and through being in a few school plays, I realized that I really enjoyed acting, but to have followed it professionally, I think would have made me not enjoy it. And actually, I made the decision to just do it because I enjoyed it. And it made it so much easier to perform, because I didn't feel any pressure that I needed to be doing this in a certain way because this was going to be my life.
Yeah.
I just was like, this is fun.
Yeah.
And I'm having a good time, and I'm doing it as best as I can. But there's the pressure was off. So I just liked it like that, you know?
So then you went to the Royal Academy of Music.
Yeah.
To not have too much pressure.
That was different. Yeah, that was like, I think with music, I realized that I liked that pressure.
Okay.
In drama, I feel like, the whole thing about drama where it's like they break you down to build you back up again, sort of thing, or it can be quite like
yeah, a bit schizophrenic in a way as well, because you're really playing with different characters and you have to understand yourself as well to a strange level, and to...
You do. Yeah, you have to understand yourself really well. And I think also it's so vulnerable.
Yes.
You have to be so vulnerable and so kind of trusting and let people kind of mold you if they want to. And I think it didn't suit me.
Yeah.
Really. I liked entertaining, but I didn't really like acting.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed feeling like I was kind of putting on a show for people, but I wasn't necessarily as interested in the whole process of like really creating a character and really losing yourself in a role. But music, I felt like I liked to be pushed because I felt like I could do it better. And I think that the way that you're pushed in music is to do with your commitment to a craft. And the same with acting, but I think it was more physical for me. I had an instrument, and the double bass is a physically demanding instrument. You know, you have to stand up to play it. It's heavy and it's difficult and awkward. So there was an element when getting good at it that I just needed to put the hours in and just play a lot and practice a lot. And I felt like I could do that. So that's why I wanted to pursue music. And I was lucky enough to get told to go, well, my bass teacher in Bristol said that I should try to go for the junior academy, which means that you go every Saturday. I went every Saturday from Bristol to London. And I would play at the Royal Academy of Music with some other teenagers, and we would do that every Saturday. And because of that, I started to get to know the place and get to know a few of the staff. And when it came time to audition, I auditioned for loads and loads of different places, but I got an offer for Royal Academy, and I felt really good about going there. So I thought that was the right fit.
And when you audition for music, how does it work?
Well, you go to all these conservatoires, and each one will be consisting of an audition. So it's not necessarily like an interview or a test. You go in and you play with a band.
Okay.
Yeah. So the conservatoire will provide you a band to play with of current students. And there'll be a section on repertoire. So repertoire being like the Great American Songbook, knowledge of jazz standards, knowledge of jazz tunes. They'll provide a list of standards that you pick from, and you pick 3 of those songs that you feel like you sound best on. it's often good to kind of vary it up. So you might want to have one ballad, one up-tempo sort of tune, one medium tune, to kind of show all of the abilities. Whatever your instrument is, they'll ask you to demonstrate the key features of that instrument. So for bass, they wanted to hear me playing walking lines, so walking bass.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing that I'll do as a bassist. But then they asked me to solo a bit as well, so they could hear my soloing. There's a small sight reading section as well. So they'll give you a piece of music. And
just to check.
Yeah, just to check. They'll give you a sheet. So it's different. I think in classical music, you might get given a sheet of music and be told to just read it as like the notes on the page. But with jazz, it's different. You'll get given what you'd call like a chart. And the chart will have all the information that the whole band is using. So you can, in theory, give this chart to every member of the group and they can all kind of read it. So it'll have the melody on it, it'll have the chords on it, it'll have any rhythmic hits in the songs, and it'll have the structure. All on one sheet of music. And so your challenge as a bassist is to have that put in front of you and decipher what you need to do to play that piece of music. And you have to kind of just pick it up as fast as possible, because that's a very important skill, being able to read music fast, you know.
Yeah, well. And when you finished training, how did it work to go into the freelance world? Or did you start actually playing gigs when you were training?
I started playing gigs when I was there. They kind of encourage you not to get a part-time job whilst you're studying there, because it is, you know, I think it's funny. Sometimes I say this to people and they laugh a little, because it's like talking about my degree studying jazz, like, oh, that was really intense. I mean, it's like, you know, I think a lot of people find that funny, because an intense degree in my mind would be something like medicine.
Yeah, but I did hear that, especially when I was training in dance and you had the music part of the conservatoire, and they had to practice their instrument for like 9 hours per day.
Yeah.
A lot on their own, and I found that terrifying.
Yeah, it is scary. And I definitely did that in my first year. I spent a lot of time practicing. It is really intense in different ways, you know. For me, one of the hardest things I had to do in my degree was write a piece of music for a big band.
Whoa.
So I was writing an original piece of music and then I was arranging it for like a 20-piece big band. And I'd never done anything like that before. And so that was a lot of hard work. But what I was saying about the whole the working thing, I suppose, is like, you know, you're encouraged not to get maybe like a sort of part-time job in a cafe or something, because also rehearsals can sometimes fall on weekend and it's unpredictable. But what they do offer, which is really great, is you can get in touch with this thing called the external bookings team, which means that because the Royal Academy is a kind of renowned institution, a lot of people want musicians from there to play at events and things.
Yeah.
So a lot of organizations will get in touch with the Royal Academy and say, I need a background jazz trio for my corporate event that's happening. Could you provide some musicians?
And you would be paid.
And we would be paid. There would be a cut taken by the Academy, but that is, you know, as to be expected. But we were still paid like a pretty decent amount.
That's good.
And so that's what got me gigging, really. And then throughout your time at RAM, you start building connections with people, and maybe you put on a few gigs of your own, and maybe you get asked to kind of play. You might start finding gigs for yourself. But when I first started, it was a really great way of just starting to gig.
That's so cool.
It was very lucky.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how would you describe jazz music?
Oh my God.
Because it's quite huge. So
yes. Damn, I was just watching a documentary before you came here on YouTube, which is called Finding the Right Notes. And it's a documentary about Ron Carter, who's an amazing, legendary jazz bassist, the most recorded jazz bass player in history. And I think that is somewhere in that documentary, he talks about why people ask what is jazz all the time. And he gets kind of frustrated about it because he's been asked that questions, I'm sure, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
He sort of makes the point of saying that you'd never ask a classical musician, like, how do you define classical music?
I mean, that'd be an interesting question.
It would be an interesting question. and one that I'm sure does get asked, but not as much as like, what is jazz?
Yes.
And also people say like, why do you think Mozart is so good? And it's like, that is an interesting question. I'm sure people would have a lot of reasons for it, but it doesn't get asked as much. We just sort of take it as fact that Mozart is great.
Yeah.
Beethoven is great. Classical music is just classical music. You don't question it as much. Whereas I think with jazz, it's like, but what is jazz? Why is jazz? Like, who is
Stuff
jazz?
like weirdos, right?
Yeah, I think, and there's the famous quote, I think, I can't remember who it's from, which is just like, if you have to ask, you'll never know. But I think that's also a bit reductive. I would say probably it is improvised music.
So that's what I thought.
Yes.
But then hearing you speaking about scores and you studied it. So I was a bit curious about, maybe it's not only improvised.
It's not, no. And improvised music, I think, is probably a bit too much of an umbrella term. Oh, God. It's hard to explain without going into the real history of it as well.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's kind of improvising within a structure. So you could say that kind of jazz is like, free jazz, free form jazz, or like utter sort of like free improvisation music. That might be improvising with no structure at all, just sort of freely improvising. But I would say that the improvising that happens in jazz, as we know it, like sort of straight ahead jazz, is often within the structure of a song. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that jazz musicians did back in the day was to take Tin Pan Alley songs, which were kind of songs from musicals back in the day, and take the song and you'd play the melody. And then at first you'd improvise around the melody, and that was how you'd improvise. Mm-hmm. And then it would develop so that it became more about improvising over the chords that were underneath the melody. And that opened up a whole new way of improvising over jazz. But it was still within the structure of a song. You still play the melody at the top, you improvise, and you play the melody at the end.
Yeah.
So it's within the structure, but the thing that makes it interesting and exciting and different from just playing the song from the musical is what the musician has done with that song.
Yeah.
And it's their interpretation of that song that often includes improvisation.
Yeah.
On the spot.
And it makes it quite, like, I feel like it breaks the rhythm. It's a bit more unexpected sometimes. And that's what I find interesting when I...
Yeah. I think that's it. I think it's like, that's why people are hooked by it. It's because you're listening to someone create something in real time.
Yeah.
It's never, the mind-boggling thing about it, I suppose. And I guess, as a musician myself, I can maybe listen to musicians improvising, and because I improvise too, I understand how they're doing that. It's not as mystical to me, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I still listen to people like Charlie Parker, or even like, I'm thinking of Wayne Shorter, because I was listening to some Wayne Shorter on the way here, who I listen to and they're improvising, and I don't know how they came up with that in that moment, right? And it's something that is like, it's beyond logic sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like you're on the stage with the musicians and there's, let's say it's a quintet. You've got piano, bass, drums, trumpet, and saxophone. And you're all creating at the same time. You're all kind of improvising within your limits, So for me, my improvising, I'm playing a walking bass line. Each note of that, I have to come up with myself. It's not written out. That's my improvisation. The piano player is playing the chords underneath the song, but they can decide how to voice that chord, how to kind of structure that chord, because there are plenty of ways of putting all those notes together to make that chord, or they can decide to play a different chord underneath. So that's their kind of improvisation, but they're still just accompanying the soloist, who is also improvised. Like, we're all improvising, and the drummer's doing it too. So when it works, it's amazing. And it's like magical. You can't, and that's why the person that's improvising at the top, the saxophonist or the trumpeter, it's like they might play something and you just go, how the hell did they do that? But it's because they were kind of in the room with those people all creating together, and like that moment will never be created again. And sometimes you're lucky enough to record that
Yeah.
and you can listen to it later.
Oh, wow.
But that's how I feel about it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good.
And do you have, because you play quite a lot of gigs,
Mm-hmm.
do you always have fun? Or are there sometimes that you're not quite managing to get there? Or do you have like things that you would do to kind of put you in the state if you're not really...
Yeah, I mean, some gigs are hard, for sure. I'm still young, you know, so I feel like I've still got a lot of exploring to do. And when I first came to London, people would say, like a lot of older musicians would give the advice of just say yes to everything. Because you need experience.
Yeah.
And you need to go out and just play with everyone, play any kind of music, everything basically, so that you can then make your mind up later and go, I liked doing that. I'm not so sure I like doing this. So I'm not going to really do that anymore. But I wouldn't have known that unless I'd done it. So a lot of the bad experiences I've had have all just been good pointers for me to say, I'm not going to do that again. But most of the time I have a great time because it's about it's what I can bring to the music. I think if I try and take everything I do seriously, then I'll often end up having a good time because I'll know that I've played my best.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what sort of excites me, because if I've dialed in a gig, maybe if I've kind of just phoned it in and not tried very hard, or if I was on autopilot, that's not a good gig because I wasn't bringing myself to it. And that happens all the time because, you know, it's hard. Not every gig can be brilliant and mind-blowing and like life-changing. Some gigs are just so-so. And some gigs you're like, I wasn't playing very well tonight, or I didn't bring my A game. I should have brought more energy. And I think, you know, in terms of getting ready for like a gig, I just try and be as relaxed as I can be. Sometimes when I teach in the daytime and I have a gig and later in the day, it's like that gig might be really tough because I've already used a lot of energy in the day. And the thing that you need is energy. You need to kind of be ready to play, because sometimes you're doing these things for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you need to just be able to bring that energy. And sometimes it is hard.
Especially such a physical instrument.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Not to mention, you know, teaching all day, going home, having maybe a bite to eat, putting on a suit, going back out again on the tube with your double bass.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Getting to the gig.
In the tube with the double bass.
Playing for 2 hours, getting on the tube back home, going to bed. You know, it's like all that stuff. It's just like, it can exhaust you.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, trying to take care of yourself as well is really important. But I've noticed recently, because it's Easter half term right now, so I'm chilling in the day, and I have a gig in the evening, and I've been chilling in the day. I'm suddenly like, wow, I can really play. I'm not tired. I'm not like, you know, I'm not struggling because I've had time to just relax. Because like that's my work. Gigging is my work. So if you think about it, working in the day and working in the night, it's working a double shift, burning the candle at both ends, and it can just get a bit knackering.
Yeah.
So I try and just stay as chill as possible. Relax, read, watch some television, practice a little bit. Practicing helps you get in the zone for sure. So yeah.
Would you like to compose something at some point?
Yes. Yeah, I would love to. I've written pieces of music for my degree, and they were fun, but I'm not naturally a composer. I wouldn't say. I think playing bass, I was drawn to it because it's a supportive role.
Okay.
I like being a musician that can bring something to someone else's music.
Okay.
So part of my job as a bassist is to like I said, with the whole reading a chart, I get to the rehearsal and someone's written. I think the thing is when you've written a bit of music, you realize how sensitive and how vulnerable it can be to give a group of musicians your music, and it's scary because you don't know what they think of it. And so you try and be as respectful as you can be and bring as much, because sometimes I especially think if you're playing with someone who doesn't write a lot of music or they're new to it, they need you to kind of give it everything so that they can hear what they were hearing in the first place when they wrote the music. So I think part of a good job of a good bass player is being able to kind of take that music, read it, play it really, really well, but also like bring ideas to it that they might not have thought of. So I have enough work just doing that, let alone actually thinking about writing my own stuff. Maybe at some point in the future, but I'm happy right now just doing my best at playing everyone else's music to the best I can, you know, and bringing something interesting to it.
I saw that you played in Morocco Bound as well. I was there yesterday, trying to find books.
It's a very, very good bookshop.
Yeah, I really like this place.
Very small, very intimate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. I had a lot of fun doing gigs there. Yeah.
As you know, I am learning the guitar. Do you have any recommendation for beginners who want to learn an instrument?
Make sure that it's fun. Because I remember, I love playing piano now. And I think it's I'm so happy that I learned piano because it's opened so many doors for me. Not only just sort of musically, but professionally as well. Like I'm able to teach piano now, which is an amazing skill. There's a lot of demand for piano teachers. So when I was first getting started with teaching, I'm really glad that I was able to play piano. But it wasn't always fun. Like I remember when I first started playing piano, I kind of hated it. And I struggled with it. Classical piano, all the way through, I really struggled with it because I was kind of more into... I wasn't that hooked on it. And then I found jazz bass.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is so much more my thing.
Yeah.
Let's just bin off piano. And my parents were like, no. You got to continue with piano because you'll need it. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I will. But I struggled on and I got to my grade 8. It took me a year to do it. I'm so glad I did it though. And there is an element of that in learning a new instrument. There is always going to be a bit of it that sucks. But I think you just got to make sure that, like, even if it sucks, you know that you're doing it because you love it.
Yeah.
So you got to be prepared for it to kind of be, like, difficult at times.
Yeah. I feel I really enjoyed doing it. But for me, what's difficult is how bad I am. You know? When you just...
patience as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes a long time to get good at something.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that is... I mean, I see all these things on YouTube, ads for this on YouTube all the time, and Instagram's full of it too, but it's this kind of almost get-rich-quick scheme for learning an instrument.
Yeah.
You can learn how to play, and what it's doing essentially is it's giving very structured advice on how to make a good sound on an instrument. So maybe it's teaching you really basic steps of how to, like, play a song so you can play a song immediately. But they're going about it in a way that is completely, I don't think, is very helpful in the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
So all these like piano apps, you know, or like guitar apps where it's kind of like you can learn how to do this really quickly. And I just think, yeah, but that's like, it's completely the wrong idea. It's a craft and it takes time and it takes patience. I think so many people just don't seem to understand that. You need to know the instrument really well to play it well. And I don't know, I think that's a really beautiful process as well.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to deprive anyone of the process of going through that.
Yeah.
And getting frustrated, but then going back at it. And even if you're frustrated, you keep practicing and then you get that bit and you feel amazing because you're like, I got that bit. And it's such a great feeling. I wouldn't want anyone to like not have that feeling.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I did start with apps and I think it's a good introduction if you maybe can't afford classes and you want to follow your pace.
I mean, yeah, and I say all that, take it with a huge pinch of salt because I never was someone that used the apps.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't want to discourage anyone who is using them to kind of get a grip with an instrument.
Yeah.
Because if it introduced people to an instrument, that's great. But I, as a teacher, I have taught a lot of students who have used those apps, and I feel like I've had to unlearn, because a lot of them will only be comfortable playing music in that form, with the kind of the colored notes hitting the piano like that, or like they'll only be comfortable with writing the letters on the music. And I don't think that's a bad way to learn,
but it's just one way.
It's one way, but I think, because I'm thinking about the big picture.
And I guess also you need to develop your ear and how you listen to the sound and not just...
Yeah, completely. And, you know, it's not to say that like the way that we all, like the Western way of teaching music is the best way. That's not what I'm saying at all, because I mean, I don't know what the name of it is now, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. There's a way of like teaching music which is completely without written music.
Yeah.
But because I was taught the way with written music, that's the way I'll teach it.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when I try and teach music in that way, I come up against a lot of like resistance, because
I would resist your teaching.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, and it's like it's not easy, and it's not easy to get immediately. But I have a real, maybe I'm old-fashioned in that sense, but I have a real feeling like the easy way round is never the best way round.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh, damn it.
No, yeah, I know. I'm like, the easy way round only gets you so far, and I think, you know,
at some point you'll have to get...
At some point, yeah, if you want to get good, if you want to like, there's learning curves with music as well, right? So like each learning curve is steeper than the one before it. And eventually you'll get to a point where the learning curve is steep, and the way you've been learning it won't be able to get you above that hill.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think eventually that hill will become steep, and the only way to get over it is to kind of like have certain skills in place and like things that maybe were a bit more difficult to learn. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I think I'm still really new to the teaching thing as well, but that's kind of the way I see it right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But who knows? I mean, I'm very prepared to just
we'll
be like disproved. Yeah. Maybe I'll change my mind about that.
So random questions of the end.
Yeah.
What makes you laugh?
What makes me laugh? I think just unexpected things, people being really silly. I'm like, I enjoy witty humor and stuff like that, but I think the things that makes me laugh really like loudly is when people are just like being kind of stupid and silly. And the Simpsons.
It's so funny. The last guest was saying American Guy.
American Guy?
Yeah.
Oh, American Dad or Family Guy?
Oh, Family Guy. See, you see how much I don't watch these things.
No, it's fair. I can't remember what it was. I was in the kitchen, I was making some food, and I was watching The Simpsons. And there was a really stupid joke in there in one of the episodes, and I just laughed like so loudly, out loud, and I hadn't laughed like that in a really long time, and I thought, yeah, that's what makes me laugh at the moment. Simpsons.
Do you believe in talent?
What do you mean by talent?
Do you believe that some people are gifted for some...
Gifted in what sense? Like as in like from birth?
Yeah.
No. I don't believe that. I think that some people maybe... The thing is, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know what genetically can be proven to be like conducive with like music. So I suppose I can't prove that like someone's born with a certain set of genes and DNA that makes them better at music or dance or art or drama. Of course. I don't know, because I just don't know about genetics. But I totally believe that it's nurture. Because in my mind, the idea of like talent being inherent and genetic means that certain people can't be. Yeah. And I think that's rubbish. Yeah. I think everyone can be. Everyone is born with the potential to do that. But the thing is, what is out of your control is that from the minute that you are out, I think, into the world, you are being influenced in ways that you are beyond your control. Certain people just may have had the right influences. Yeah. You know? But we can all learn as well. So, yeah.
Do you like to go to the supermarket?
No. No, I don't. I like unpacking all the stuff at home.
Okay.
So I like unpacking all the food I've bought into the fridge and stuff and putting it in its little places and stuff. But I don't like being in supermarkets.
Nice. If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
I think, just because I was thinking about it earlier, but probably Duke Ellington.
Nice.
Yeah. Just because I was listening to him earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could live a parallel life and do something else?
And do something else, I would probably want to do something like be a vicar.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was talking with a friend about this, where it's like, she said to me, what's something that you think you'd be really good at, but there's something stopping you from doing that?
Uh-huh.
And she said, I can't remember what she said, maybe she said vicar as well, but I also agreed with her, is that I think I'd be really good as a vicar or a priest, because my granddad was a vicar and I admire and respected him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because he kind of was very much a community man. And it was all about the community of the church. It was all about having a kind of like collective space where everyone met and talked. And, you know, that's super important, I think, regardless of whether you're religious or not, is community is super important wherever you find it. But often back in the day, I think the church was the most common place you'd find just a sense of belonging. And I think that's really beautiful. But I think that I would say probably agnostic, but I don't believe in God. So that's what stops me. There you go. In a parallel life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you like to sing a song or?
No.
Nah. But you can send me some stuff.
I'll send you some stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can pretend that you played here.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Improvise.
I'll improvise it, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, the thing that makes me click on Lover's Lane would go for naught if I were caught without my. If I ever left my house without my walking stick, it would be something that I could never explain. Oh, the thing that makes me click on Lover's Lane would go for naught if I were caught